Hello, friends. Hello. Welcome to another exciting literature class. Our class today will be on a very interesting book. A very interesting one at that, I can assure you. It's titled Second Class Citizen. Second Class Citizen by Buchi Emecheta. Second Class Citizen. Now, let's start our class. Behavioral objectives. By the end of the lesson, the learner should be able to understand the background of the author, background and setting of the novel, and the plot summary. You're going to understand the background of the author, the background and setting of the novel, and the plot summary itself. Now, let's start the class. The first one, the background of the author. Background of the author. As you can see, the picture there is Buchi Emecheta. She was born in Lagos, Nigeria in 1944 and she died in 2017. Very recent. She moved to London in 1960 and later studied sociology and worked in North London as a community worker. Her experiences in London, when she traveled to London, the experiences, everything she experienced there were a major inspiration for her writing. Her work often speaks on sexual politics and racial prejudice. Her experiences promoted the writing of her autobiography, Second Class Citizen. So obviously, the book we're going to be learning today, it's an autobiography of the writer herself, Buchi Emecheta. Now, let's look at the background and setting of the book. The background and setting. Second Class Citizen was written in 1974. You know, she went to London in 1960. So it was written 14 years after, during the post-colonial era in Nigeria. The post-colonial era in Nigeria, where Nigerians, upon attainment of independence, wanted to make a name for themselves through education, as seen in the character of Ada in the book. The setting of the story is in Lagos and the United Kingdom. So we're going to be seeing a little bit of the story in Lagos and a little bit in the United Kingdom. Now, let's get to the plot summary itself. In this case, novels are usually in chapters. We are going to be doing chapter by chapter. Chapter by chapter. Now, chapter 1. Chapter 1 is talking about childhood. Ada Ofili, an 8-year-old girl, lives with her mother, father, and little brother in Lagos. Ada Ofili is the main character. She's an 8-year-old girl. She lives with her mother, Ne Ofili, and her father, Pa, and her little brother in Lagos. Ada loved school. She loves to go to school. But due to financial constraints, their family could not afford schooling. Her parents almost put a stop to it. They felt education was eating from their money and they needed something to cut off something so that everybody can feed, we can actually survive. Schooling is not very important. That was what they felt. But Ada almost made her mom get arrested for child neglect. Ada went to the market and one of the sellers there saw her and was asking her why she took food from a stall, and she was talking about her mom not being able to feed her and she wanted to go to school but her mom refused. So the police followed her to the house and Ne Ofili had to go to the police station. So because of that, Ne Ofili promised that Ada would go to school. So this pushed Pa and Ada to send her to school. So because of what happened, they were really ashamed and disappointed, but they saw how Ada was so much interested in going to school. So they had no other choice but to send her to school. Ada Ofili had the dream of going to England to become a writer. That had always been her dream. So during classes, when they're talking about the white man's land, London, she's always interested in hearing those stories because she always believes that one day she'll be there. And that's why she speaks good English, because she's preparing herself to go to England someday. That's all about chapter 1. We're talking about Ada Ofili, the 8-year-old girl that lives with her mom and the one who loves education so much that she's willing to do anything just to go to school. Now, chapter 2. Chapter 2. Escape into elitism. Escape into elitism. Ada's dream had many obstacles. She wanted to study hard and get to England, but that dream had many obstacles. Her father eventually dies in chapter 2. And because of that, according to the Igbo culture, her mom is inherited by her father's brother. That's her uncle. So her mom is now married off to her uncle. And so, in order to go to school and actually achieve that dream of going to England, she ends up marrying Francis Obi, an accountant. Her parents were against it. Her family was against the marriage, but because she needed to go to school, she wanted to go to school by all means, she had to marry Francis, an accountant, and then she secured a job as a librarian in the American Consulate Library. So marrying Francis gave her the opportunity to go further her education, go to the university and study library science, coming out to become a librarian in the American Consulate Library in Lagos. So you see that it has given her that opportunity to actually push for her dream to go to England and become a writer. Francis comes up to Ada someday and tells her that he wants to go to the UK so that he can go there and make a name for himself, become better. And Ada buys into the idea. She actually buys into the idea. Francis's father convinces him to tell Ada to fund his trip to the UK. And she actually does. So he goes to the UK to become a better accountant. But Ada is not happy as he's going. She didn't even cry on the day he was leaving for UK. Nothing. She was just indifferent towards it because she was scared. What if he doesn't come back? What if he doesn't remember them? And few years later, Ada joins him in England. She had saved enough money, and then she convinced her in-laws that it was time for her to join her husband in England. A wife cannot stay without the husband, and a husband cannot stay without the wife. So she convinced them, and they finally allow her to join them in England. By then, she already had 2 children. 2 children. That's all on chapter 2. Now, chapter 3. A cold welcome. A cold welcome. All that Ada heard and read about England was not what she saw when she arrived. They actually used a ship. They could not afford plane tickets, so they used the ship. All she expected, all she read, all she has heard from her teachers and everybody about England was not what she saw when she came. England was so cold and cloudy. Like everywhere was just dull because it was the winter season she came, so everywhere was cold and cloudy. Francis also gave her a cold welcome. He also gave her a cold welcome because he wasn't expecting her to come to England. He wanted her to stay back in Nigeria. But he wasn't happy that she came to England. The apartment they lived in was very small. And Francis always reminds Ada of the fact that immigrants in the UK are called second-class citizens. She doesn't like the title, but she has no choice. She's living in the apartment. The landlord is against having a family. So every other Nigerian living in that apartment with Francis don't have families, or their families are in their home countries. So Ada finally gets a librarian job at the North Finkley Library. The North Finkley Library. She gets a job there as a librarian to support the family so that she won't have to always sit down at home and Francis will be the one providing for the family with the little he is making. So that's all in chapter 3. Now, chapter 4. Chapter 4 is the daily minders. The daily minders. The daily minders are like nannies, caregivers that take care of children. Ada loves her librarian job and even makes friends with the chief librarian, Mrs. Conrad. Everyone loves Ada because she's very hardworking and dedicated. Their landlord at home complains about Ada's children, advising that she considers foster care. He doesn't appreciate black people having kids because it makes them feel comfortable. So he's against it totally, and he's advising that she should consider taking her children to foster care. She should foster her children, give them to white families to take care of. Let her hustle. So indirectly, Ada will be a woman in America that doesn't have a child or children. Frances accepts this, but Ada doesn't. She doesn't see the need to let go of her children, which is not nice at all. At all. Janet, Ada's new friend. Ada met Janet on the road. So she clicked with her because they talked at length, and Ada got to know that Janet was like her. And then Janet tells Ada of these daily minders. They are white women who take care of children for a stipend. They are white women who take care of people's children for a stipend. Ada sends her children to a daily minder named Trudy so that she can walk. So Ada leaves her children in the hands of Trudy, a daily minder, so that she can walk. Trudy maltreats the children. She doesn't give them. Ada gives the Trudy food to take care of the children, diapers for the younger ones, but Trudy maltreats them so much, and this makes Ada anxious to find a nursery for her children. She's not comfortable with the way Trudy maltreats her children. All of a sudden, her daughter doesn't talk. Her daughter that used to talk very well was no longer outspoken. She was now timid. And Ada was not comfortable with that, so she was really, really anxious to find a nursery for her children. Now, chapter 5. Chapter 5 opens with an expensive lesson. Ada's child, Vicky, Ada's son, Vicky, is in danger because he caught meningitis while he was with Trudy. How? She was at work one day and then Trudy called that her son is sick and he's in the hospital. She was so scared. He had caught meningitis because this was due to Trudy's manhandling of the children. Trudy wasn't taking care of the children at all. Ada, after treating her child, Vicky, she decided to confront Trudy. She came in and was yelling at Trudy. Like, why would Trudy maltreat her children? Why would she treat them like that? That they are just kids. Meanwhile, other white women were just there staring at Ada like she had gone crazy, which was not fair. But Trudy learns that second-class citizens in UK use daily minders, but at a high risk. You've agreed to use a daily minder? Fine. But whatever it is that happens to your child, you have to take it. You should not complain. So that was the expensive lesson she learned. Miss Sterling, a woman that overheard Ada yelling at Trudy, offers Ada a nursery where she can keep her children. Meanwhile, Trudy was dismissed from the daily minder service. She now had to relocate so that she can take care of her own family. So the expensive lesson was she understanding that second-class citizens have no right to even talk or even complain about certain things. What you see is what you get, and what you get is how you will get it, and it will stay that way. Pretty awful for black people in London as at that time. Pretty awful. Now, the next chapter we're looking at Sorry No Color. Ada and Francis eventually get evicted from their apartment. The landlord got tired of having the children in the home. Ada and Francis always fighting. He evicted them from their home because the house owners and neighbors' hatred and intimidation. The neighbors were angry that how would Francis be allowed to bring his wife and his kids, whereas they can't bring them because they can't afford it. And they became jealous, and they were hateful towards the kids. They were very, very angry. They were always maltreating the kids as well. And then they felt intimidated. And then the house owners, white people, they always hated the blacks. And then imagine having a landlord or a landlady that doesn't have a child, and then you're bringing in your wife that has lots of children. What do you think will happen? Obviously, they won't accept you. So Ada tries to find a new house, but always sees no colors in all the adverts, meaning they don't want black people. They had no place to stay in, and Ada was expecting another OB into the family. Francis ended up getting her pregnant again, and they were just evicted. So they needed a house so that she can actually rest because she's carrying a child. She was pregnant. Can you imagine? I can only imagine what she was going through at that time. The next chapter is looking at the ghetto. The narrator briefly discusses a generation of Nigerian men who came to London in the 1940s. He's just telling us about a group of Nigerians who came to London in 1940s, even before Francis and Ada, before they came, how they were able to survive, how they got money, became free men, worked in railway stations and made enough money to cater for themselves. One of them, Panobu was also one of the persons that came into Nigeria in the 1940s, hustled really hard and made a name for himself. He had a vacant room in his big house, so Ada and Francis requested for the room and Panobu decided to rent it to them. So you see, a black helping another black. That's the importance of being good. So, chapter 8 is showing us role acceptance. Ada is religiously bullied by Francis, who tells her that the Bible admonishes women to be virtuous, and yet Ada is doing the opposite. Francis always wants her to give all her money, use all her money to take care of the family, while he keeps writing exams and keep on failing. She keeps on giving him money, he keeps on writing his Cambridge exams and he keeps failing, and she should take care of the house, the feeding, the clothing, the rent, everything. And he's telling her that in the Bible the women are taught to be virtuous, so he wants her to just be meek and accept everything, whereas he, taking the title of the man of the house, will just continue parabolating and not doing anything. She leaves the house without Francis's knowledge and goes to the hospital on her own. She was assisted by some women who took her to the hospital to have her baby. On her way to the hospital, she couldn't even make it to the hospital because she was in labor. Francis was nowhere to be found. Some women had to take her to the hospital to have her baby. She was happy when she was told that she gave birth to a son. She was really, really happy. So you can imagine, she was really happy that she gave birth to a son because he was already maltreating his daughters. Francis was maltreating his own daughters. Not fair. Not fair at all. Chapter 9 is showing us learning the rules. Ada spent a few days in the hospital. She spent a few days in the hospital and learned some codes of conduct from women in the same ward with her. She learned some things that she'll be able to take back to her home. There were certain things happening in her home that she wasn't really comfortable with and she would always have to lash out. But being around other women taught her a lot of things and she learned a lot from them. She learned to always be nice to people who go all out to give their smiles and kind nods, because when she came in the first time, she ignored them even when they were really, really kind to her and welcoming. She looked forward to seeing her children and vowed to always love and protect them. She made a resolution to always focus on her children this time around, that it looks like her husband is not yet ready to even think about them. So her job as a mother is to take care of them, and that was all she was looking at. She needed to look after her children. That was it for her. Chapter 10 showed us applying the rules. The rules she learnt in chapter 9, applying them. She was applying them in chapter 10, where she celebrated Christmas with her children, irrespective of the fact that they had very little to get by on. She wanted them to be happy, to feel the joy of the birth of Christ, to make them feel happy. Despite the fact that they had very little, she went all out to take care of the children. She loved her children so much that even on Christmas Day, she was willing to summon a doctor for Vicky, who had been bitten by bugs and couldn't hear with his right ear. On Christmas Day, the doctor had to come over, a Caribbean, had to come over to take care of Vicky because Vicky was bitten by a bug. Normally, Christmas Day is a time for celebration. If your child is bitten by a bug, you wait. But she went all out. That's to show you how much she loved her children. Chapter 11, Population Control. Ada discovers that Francis was not ready to practice family planning. Wanted to keep having kids, wanted to keep, getting her pregnant and having plenty children. So she decided to go to a clinic to make inquiries about birth control. She forged her husband's signature and took the pill. She needed it, but she did not take the pill after buying it. That was the thing. She was not sure about it, so she did not take it. And then when Francis found out, he beat her up mercilessly. After beating her up and everything, and after all the suffering she went through, she found out that she was pregnant yet again. After trying to make sure that she can take care of 3 children, another one was on the way. No money, nothing to get by on, and you're expecting another child. How do you think Ada would have coped at that moment? You readers, how do you think she would have coped? Chapter 12. Chapter 12 is showing us the collapse. A sad and pregnant Ada reflects on the present that once followed her in childhood, her dream to come to UK, and feels that it is returning to her side. She feels motivated again despite the despair she has suffered in her marriage. With everything that had happened with Francis's domestic abuse and everything, Ada still had hope. She still remembered her dream, the reason why she came to UK, to be a writer. She was hoping to have an abortion, but the pills given to her by the doctor were not abortion pills. They were not abortion pills. She learns to write and starts on her book titled The Bride Price. She wanted to write a book titled The Bride Price while in London, despite everything that had happened to her. The collapse, everything around her was collapsing. But she still remembered her dream to become a writer in London. Chapter 13. The ditch pool. Ada enjoys the summer, finally having the experience of being a true housewife, because she gave Francis an ultimatum. You take care of the family, because I will not always be using my money to take care of the family. She gave him an ultimatum. You use your money. You started making money. You've gotten a good job. You take care of the family. If not, you will not eat. I will not take care of you. The children are yours too, as well as mine. You have a responsibility to them. So she was enjoying the experience of being a true housewife. She cares for the children, and when they go down for their naps after lunch, she has time to work on her novel. Now, when she was done with the novel, she sent her manuscripts to a friend, a colleague of hers, who read it and was inspired by what she wrote. And getting that words of encouragement from a colleague made Ada want to show her husband. And when Francis saw it, Francis told her, "What rubbish, what is this you're writing? What is this what you're writing?" Made her, belittled her skills. Ada felt really sad. One day when she came back, he was smiling. And he was like, he needs to keep the house warm. And he got some papers. And the way he was smiling, Ada was suspicious. And then, when she went to check out the papers that were burning, she saw that it was her novel manuscript. Francis burnt her novel, the novel she had written. He burnt it. That was the last straw. That was what broke Ada completely, and she left the marriage. He beat her, and he even attempted to adopt off her children. She decided that there was nothing that was going to make her stay in this marriage. So she leaves with her children and is saved by a childhood friend. She was on the road when the childhood friend saw her and called her by her name. And that was how she made a name for herself. That was how Ada made a name for herself. Remember, the author, Buchi Emecheta, wrote Second Class Citizen as an autobiography, meaning this book, Ada herself, is in fact representing Buchi Emecheta. Buchi Emecheta in this story is Ada. All these things that happened to Buchi Emecheta. No wonder she's a very wonderful writer. So here you are, the story of Second Class Citizen, Ada Ofili, who went through a lot of trials from family, from the society, but still made a name for herself. He's showing you the experiences of the blacks in a white man's country. This is the story of Second Class Citizen. Now, we'll be doing a little bit of home fun. Evaluation. Why do you think Francis Obi was being so cruel to his family? From the story you've heard now, why do you think he was so cruel to his family? Answer the question and get back to me. So, we've come to the end of our lovely class. The book titled Second Class Citizen by Buchi Emecheta. So this is me, your teacher, saying bye for now, and I'll see you in our next literature class. Anticipate the next class. Bye.